Hey Tyler, do you play video games?
I do. I do play video games. Mostly sports titles, but I'll dabble in other ones as well.
So I should probably not really openly admit this with our next guest coming on, but I still like Pac-Man. Miss Pac-Man is even more fun. We have like one of those really, really old Superman arcade games
Okay.
in our basement that my husband got because obviously he collects comics. So of
Yes.
course you have to have a real arcade game.
I mean, why not?
But when it comes to the new ones, I can still hear my twin sister telling my nephew, get off the computer. You cannot play these video games. You only have 15 more minutes. And I'm sure those conversations have been happening around the house,
Mm-hmm.
even more so over the past year
Mm-hmm.
with the pandemic. But gaming is really a very big business and a very lucrative business as well. We're going to bring in Scott Brodie. He's the founder for Heart Shaped Game. How are you today?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
Okay, so you're probably really good at gaming.
Something like that. That's at one point when I was a little younger, I had more time to really get good at things. But nowadays, I just try to keep up on what's out there and play a lot of everything.
What I love though is that you guys are a local company. Tell us more about your company.
Yeah, so I'm the founder of Heart Shaped Games. We're based in Ann Arbor currently, but a lot of the people we work with are actually virtual and work all over the country. Um,
So you
we
guys were remote before the pandemic?
We were, yeah. Everybody stole our business model here. Yeah,
Imagine that.
yeah. So we were pretty versed at this, but I mean, obviously, if you'd like to get into that, there are many differences during a pandemic than normal times working from home. But yes, we found a way to make strategy games for PC and mobile, and our next upcoming game, We Are the Caretakers, is also going to be for Xbox.
So with that, Scott, what has it been um, for you and your team throughout the pandemic, though? Overall, have you seen the need is growing for more games?
Yeah, I think overall games obviously picked up in popularity just because people were looking for things to do. And so I think by and large, the games industry was one of the few that I guess had a benefit if there was a silver lining to such a terrible thing. So yeah, absolutely. I think the nature of games being mostly digital and being able to be distributed digitally helps business kind of stay as usual as usual as it can get.
What is the process like to try to create a new game and one that really gets the attention of people that they want to play and it becomes popular?
Yeah, it's so interesting because there's so many different types of games. There's games for people who want to play for 3 minutes. There's games for people who want to spend 80 hours going through a deep story. So I think it's really about first identifying sort of the types of players you are looking to make a game for, and usually that starts with just what do I like to play, what am I passionate about, and what do I think other people will like. So a lot of times we start from that angle, and for me those games have always been deep strategy games, but that are very easy to jump into. So they don't take a lot to learn necessarily, but there's a lot there once you kind of get into them.
So I don't have to have Wikipedia up to try to follow along then.
No, no, not at all. And sorry for a quick aside, but there is a new Pac-Man game that just came out for Nintendo Switch, so you should look into that. You can play against 99 people playing Pac-Man at the same time.
See, look at that. We don't even have a Nintendo. We do have a Wii, and I think my husband still has like his original PlayStation.
Oh, nice.
He's a collector. It's probably even in the box too.
Very nice.
So with that too though, but we've heard those conversations in households where parents are trying to tell their kids get off the video games or limit their exposure to video games, but we also know that esports is really becoming a big industry right now, and colleges now have esports teams, Oakland University, into which kids can get scholarships. How do you think that's going to change your industry overall and to attract new talent?
Yeah, I mean, I think lots of people look for something competitive, and I think I myself, I used to joke when I was in high school that I was a three-sport athlete. I played basketball, football, and Quake, which was an online game. And so I think that there's just a love for competitiveness, and I think you get all of the same things you would get in a virtual team as you would in a real team. And I do think it has become such a big business that it's hard to ignore as a game developer, and looking for ways to build on top of your game, a community aspect or a competitive aspect like that.
So with that, we're talking with Scott Brodie. He's the founder for Heart Shaped Games out of Ann Arbor. And with that, Scott, when it comes to the industry and the business side, what type of talent are you trying to attract, or what advice do you give to maybe students that are looking to go into the industry and do what you're doing?
Yeah, I think what's great about games is that it's a huge growing industry, and there's lots of different types of teams, lots of different types of games being made. So the first thing would just be don't be afraid to focus on what you really like, whether it's art, whether it's programming, being a producer who's sort of more of like a manager and helps get games, through to ship. So think about what you really like, and I'm sure there's a fit for you. And then yeah, I would say find a mix between a love of something creative and a love of something technical, because games really are that marriage of a creative industry. All of them really: music, art, storytelling, and then the technical of getting a computer to do what you want it to do through programming. So you don't have to be a programmer, but I think um, finding a love on both sides will really set you up for success, and help you find lots of ways to fit into a game development team to contribute.
So do you anticipate, because of the pandemic, more people have become interested in games and gaming, that maybe it's going to spark an explosion or a growth in this industry?
That's an interesting thought. I think that there are just lots of people that wouldn't typically be exposed to games, maybe have decided to spend more time with it, and maybe they will uh, through that become a long-term game player after the pandemic, and maybe that will spark interest in the creative arts. I mean, I know that's definitely how I got my start. I started playing games, fell in love with them, and just had a curiosity about, okay, how are these things being made? Who makes them? Where does that happen? And you know, locally there weren't that many companies, so I learned very quickly that I'd either have to create my own thing or I'd have to travel, which I ended up doing both.
And so with that too, I mean, because with them not really being created here in Michigan, we know that for so many people, it's like an internship or a family member is in that industry. So it's almost like you had to forge your own path.
Yes, I mean, I was lucky to find one of the few companies here a long time ago. They're now out of business, unfortunately, but it was called Outrage Games, and they were based in Ann Arbor. And so I was able to get an early internship with them, and that helped me really solidify that that's what I wanted to do. And but I mean, I guess again, for anyone out there who's looking to get started, I mean, the great thing is that you can you don't necessarily need a company, a physical location to go to. You can right now go get a tool like Unity or the Unreal Game Engine or whatever the tool you can find. Make something, put it out there on the internet, all from your home, and it doesn't matter where you're based as long as you've made something interesting that people want. So that's kind of the beauty now versus when I started. I'm showing my age, so long ago. That you don't have to worry necessarily about having to travel to a company if your goal is just to simply make a game and you're out here in the Midwest like I was.
So what are your thoughts on some of these huge esports competitions? Obviously, we know this year with the pandemic, they've been put on hold, but we've seen where stadiums are packed because of esports. And how does that correlate with your industry and what you do?
Yeah, I'm not really making like just because we're a smaller company, so we don't necessarily have the additional tools that maybe some of the bigger companies have to put prize money up to hold events and so forth. That said, uh, it's really been incredible to see how that aspect of our industry has grown, because I think it's just a proof point of how mainstream games have come, and how many people are playing and following these games like League of Legends, Hearthstone. I mean, there's numbers of games out there that to someone who doesn't follow it might say this is a foreign concept. I've never heard of these things. There's a whole world out there that I'm not aware of, but it just goes to show how big of an industry it is. I look at it as a proof point that you can pack a stadium with people who follow this game, and it may not otherwise be obvious if we weren't having those games. So I think it's helpful for the outside, non-gaming fans to kind of take stock of how big of an industry gaming has become.
And do you anticipate it's going to help your industry by having local universities such as Oakland University, Kettering, now having, like e-gaming teams? I would think that would help, funnel into some of your smaller companies, your company and other companies as well, to try to get that talent.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic. I mean, I love that there's now that like equal footing representation for game teams at a college level, because there's no reason it shouldn't be, and I think that's great that there's now some organization around those things. And I think again, kind of what we were talking about earlier, I think anything that leads you to be interested in technology or games is always a good informal sales pitch for for the games industry in general. So I think there are a lot of people who transition from being a highly competitive player into, say, working on those games. So I know a lot of players who are very successful, and they're the players who know the game so intimately that the companies would like to hire them so that they can really pick their brain about, okay, how do we improve the game to really fit this competitive part where maybe not every player is trying to play at that high of a level, they're just playing for fun. So how do we capture that audience as well as the casual player?
It really is a fascinating industry. And Scott Brodie with us here on the MegaCast. He's the founder of Heart Shaped Games out of Ann Arbor. And with that, Scott, too. Did it help, though? Because one of the things in the pandemic, and again, I apologize for my ignorance. I'm a Pac-Man person, or Galaxy. Remember that one was always fun as well. But with that, most of these games, can you download them into a program, or do you have to actually physically go buy the program?
Yeah, I mean that's what's the great thing now is that pretty much every game can be grabbed digitally. So
Yeah.
all of the on PC there's platforms called Steam. There are um, like consoles, where you can just download the game directly to your console with things like Xbox Game Pass. So yeah, every sort of major gaming platform has a digital component, and it's actually rarer to go out and physically buy a disc these days, for sure.
So what are your more popular games?
So at Heart Shaped Games, we've made 3 games over, say, the past 10 years. But I guess the most popular one we've made, although that's relative, is a game called Hero Generations, which is a game where you play a character, and every step they take is 1 year of their life. And you have to find a mate to settle down and have a child, and then continue your generation by playing as your child. And then right now, I guess our biggest game that we've tried to make is a game called We Are the Caretakers, which is a strategy game based around a metaphor of anti-poaching. So you're actually putting together squads of characters to try to protect animals in this sort of sci-fi planet. And connected to that game, we're actually giving 10% of our sales to charity, and we partnered with the Rhino Recovery Fund to kind of give something that sort of supports what the game is about.
I love that because it really is about nature as well. How do you guys come up with the concept and then take that concept into a physical game?
Yeah, so in a lot of cases for us, we actually start with some real world inspiration, which isn't always the case with other companies. So we really sat down and actually talked with people doing that work, conservationists and rangers and that sort of thing, and just really got a sense of what went into that. And we quickly realized that there was a strategy layer to their work, and really from that kind of identified how that could become a game to mimic that experience. So we really try to do that, and then try to take that and not just mimic exactly what we see, try to create something that's exciting that people want to play, that maybe even if they've never thought about animals or anything like that. They're just looking for an exciting, in our case, for this game, a science fiction world that they could get excited about, and then maybe reveal some of those things afterwards. So our company tries our best to build fun games that also maybe have a little bit of depth below them as well.
It's so great. You're right in our backyard. It's amazing. Some of the businesses that are here, right here in Metro Detroit. Scott Brodie with us. He's the founder for Heart Shaped Games. Scott, anything maybe I didn't ask that you want to add, or how can people find out more about your company and the games?
No, thanks for having us. So you can maybe follow me if you'd like to learn more about what we do day to day. I'm fairly active on Twitter at Brodie Games. You can also go to heartshapedgames.com to see all of our games. And I would love for you to check out We Are the Caretakers, which has just come out recently on Steam. Again, the link there would be on our website. So yeah, we'd love for you guys to check it out and connect with me if you do end up playing.
Well, Scott, we so appreciate your time, and we wish you the best of luck and continued success as well.
Thank you.